In Latin America alone, there have been about 60 US military interventions since 1890. The United States perpetuates this daily violence and subjugation, not to spread democracy or human rights, but to extract resources and protect capital. This global empire does not only use brute military force to impose capitalism's world order. It's learned from past blunders of obvious coups and regime change wars that have come to define its naked imperialism. It cloaks its goals and control through hybrid war, methods of mass propaganda, and economic warfare through the use of sanctions, which they call soft power. Sanctions are administered with the pretense of peaceful coercion to bypass war, but the reality is that sanctions are war, and they cause the same amount of mass suffering and death. Of course, sanctions are nothing new. We all know the horrific devastation wrought by sanctions during the Gulf War in the 90s. That killed 500,000 children. But in a post-9/11 world, the US system of financial weaponry has grown with extreme precision. These sweeping powers are unconstrained and largely undefined, and have the power to decimate economies and leave countries in financial ruin. From 2000 to 2021, the use of sanctions increased nearly 1,000%. Leaders from both parties use them now as the primary method to force countries to fall in line. Today, US sanctions affect a third of humanity, with more than 8,000 measures on 42 different countries. When Venezuela's economic freefall, Cuba's food shortages, or Afghanistan's severe famine are even covered by the corporate media, the utterance of sanctions is almost always omitted in the context of why these things are happening. It's always just in a vacuum, right? It's always on the shoulders of those governments. They're gonna tell you that these sanctions are good, and they're necessary in the interests of human rights and democracy. They're gonna say that they're justified because they only target despotic leaders whose values don't represent ours. That's the first big lie. Obviously. Anyone can look at who the US supports around the world and see that its closest allies are theocratic dictatorships like like Saudi Arabia, of course, military dictatorships like Israel, or flagrant human rights abusers like Colombia or Uganda. Not only do these countries not get sanctioned, but they all receive massive financial assistance, military aid, training. All of these countries serve as linchpins for the empire in their respective continents, and nothing they can do, including the mass killing of peaceful protesters or the state-sanctioned execution of American journalists, will warrant the United States to break these bonds. The second big lie is that the United States has the ordained right to decide which countries should be subjected to punishment, what leaders a country deserves, and the process in which they can choose these leaders. If people elect a leader that they do not like for something as simple as wanting to take out IMF loans, not wanting to take out IMF loans, or for wanting to use their own resources for their own people, the United States will use its massive amount of leverage as a superpower to dole out extreme punishment. You must accept your role as a colonial imperial outpost, or you will face consequences. This is gangsterism.